Tonight's big stories. The follow-up resupply mission to the BRP Sierra Madre was a success, but the AFP and the Philippine Coast Guard is reporting of attempts by China to interfere. In fact, satellite images showed at least 11 Chinese militia vessels taking blockade positions.
A dedicated public servant through and through, we honor the life of Migrant Worker Secretary Toots Ople, who passed away today at 61.
And we will be talking FIBA World Cup, specifically basketball in the Philippines, with Pacific Rim's author Rafe Bartholomew, who is here in the studio, and we will be talking to him later on.
Welcome to the big story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Sean Yao.
Right on to our big story tonight, that of the National Task Force in the West Philippine Sea reporting success in their latest resupply mission to the BRP Sierra Madre. But they did admit that there were attempts by China to block this resupply mission.
So just to clarify, this was an August 22 resupply mission.
Today, yes.
Yes, and then the previous one was August 5. That one was blocked, or at least one of the ships.
And that was considered incomplete,
Yes.
right? Precisely because only one ship made it through to the BRP Sierra Madre to bring food and needed supplies.
But there were reports that there were attempts by the Chinese vessels to block our boats. I think we need to clarify on that.
Yes,
That's
and we
right.
do have Colonel Medel Aguilar of the AFP later on, so we'll clarify that with him.
But now, in a statement, the NTF West Philippine Sea reports that the follow-up resupply mission conducted today was a success despite attempts by the Chinese Coast Guard and Chinese maritime militia vessels to block, harass, and interfere, quote-unquote, with the mission. The supply ships used for the follow-up mission were the Uniza Maze 1 and 2, the same ships that were blasted by China's water cannons in the previous mission. The two supply ships were escorted by PCG vessels, BRP Cabra and BRP Sindangan.
Well, earlier today, Ray Powell, the director of Sea Light Project at Stanford University's Gordon Knott Center for National Security Innovation, uploaded in an in a Twitter post, the satellite images of supposed Chinese militia ships taking up blockade positions in Ayungin. Powell said the 4 militia vessels were deployed from Panganiban or Mischief Reef since yesterday afternoon. Aside from these 4, Powell said 7 more Chinese ships were deployed northeast of the Mischief Reef, bringing the total deployed maritime militia vessels to 11.
Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Huang Xilian, says they were aware of this most recent resupply mission. He reiterates that China sees no problem with the delivery of humanitarian supplies to the BRP Sierra Madre, as long as shipments do not include construction materials. But Ambassador Huang appeared to dodge questions on why militia vessels were deployed in Ayungin just in time for this follow-up resupply.
I have to follow the latest development, but we can share with you the latest statements of the China Coast Guard.
Why? Why is China employing militia vessels to patrol?
As I said, the point is that there has not been any issue with the delivery of humanitarian supplies. Because, as I said, that there is a special arrangement for this.
The Chinese Coast Guard also actually released a statement about this follow-up mission. The statement, as translated, goes, CCG spokesperson Liu Dejun said the Philippine ships entered Ayungin, which they call Ren Ai Tiao, without permission from the Chinese government. They said they issued stern warnings against the Philippine ships, followed them, and effectively regulated them. But CCG said that because the Philippine ships did not carry supposed illegal building materials and were only carrying food, they were allowed to pass under what China calls temporary special arrangements made from a humanitarian perspective. China also maintained that they have sovereignty over the Spratlys, including the Ayungin Shoal.
Now here to tell us more about their latest follow-up resupply mission and China's attempts to interfere with that, we have with us live via Zoom AFP spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar. Good evening, Colonel.
Good evening, Ms. Gretchen, Ms. Yon, and Ms. Reina. Also good evening to your viewers.
Okay, Colonel, successful resupply mission today, but there were some challenges reported to us attempts to interfere and block the Philippine vessels. Can you tell us more about that? What challenges did our ships encounter?
Yes, there were some attempts to block, but I think these attempts are just statements. They knew that they don't have to block our resupply mission or RORE mission. They felt that in the past RORE mission, when they did some violent activities, acts, the international community did not approve it.
All right, Colonel Aguilar, China says, and I'm going to quote from the translated statement, that there were temporary special arrangements or based on humanitarian considerations. What's your take on that? Is there really such an arrangement that exists between China and the Philippines?
I'm not aware of that arrangement, and I think there's no need for that arrangement because we are operating in an area which is part of our exclusive economic zone. We are also doing activities that are in relation to the maintenance of BRP Sierra Madre because it is there. So I don't think that such an arrangement exists.
It's not so much that the arrangement exists, Colonel, but reading between the lines, I think what China is trying to say there is that this mission was successful because they allowed it, right? They called that area their jurisdiction, their territory, and they're saying that they allowed Philippine vessels to pass through from a humanitarian perspective. What would you say to that?
That is their own view of what happened. What is important is we have shown our determination to do what is right, to fight for what is right, and to protect what the Filipino deserves for the future of its generation.
Sir, sabi po nila they're allowing these ships to enter for humanitarian purposes specifically because there weren't any construction materials inside. Would you or do you have any insight into how they're finding out what exactly is in our ships?
I don't think they know what is inside the ship. It is probable that they are just justifying their action before. But I think it's the pressure that they felt that changed their behavior this today in when they saw that the arrival of our supply vessels.
So kumbaga, Colonel, nagpapalamig sila, no? Kasi ang init ng mga reactions from the August 5 Rero, where, of course, may water cannon na nagyari. This time around, you guys are saying everything was pretty smooth. No water cannoning incidents, no dangerous maneuvers at sea. So do you think nagpapalamig lang yung China? Because the last time, they got a lot of flack from the international community.
It could be that that's a possibility. And that's, I think, the most probable scenario. And from this initial success, we will build on it. It is important that we have to maintain the pressure because it is important for everyone, for the whole world, that this encroachment in our area, in our maritime zone, will not be tolerated by us. As a country, a state that is bestowed with the sovereign rights to explore the resources that are located therein, that can be found therein, it is also our responsibility to maintain good environmental practices in that area so that we will be able to serve also the requirements of the future generation. And at the same time, ensure the safe passage of those people or navigators who will be passing that area. So it's both a privilege and an obligation that we have to perform being holder of this EEC.
Sir, there is a bone of contention here, though, because last time you were on the set with us, you were very clear that the vessels were not carrying building or construction materials, and yet they insist. Let me read to you from their statement again. They say we firmly oppose the Philippines using the opportunity of transporting supplies to ship illegal building materials to the warship that was quote-unquote illegally stranded in the Renai Reef, otherwise known as Ayungin Shoal. Again, that was from their spokesperson for the China Coast Guard. So I fear that this incident may keep happening if they are of the mindset that the vessels were transporting illegal construction materials. How are we going to bridge this divide? How are we going to iron this out with the other side?
I think they should not point their finger to us, because if you look at the Mischief Reef, they were the ones who actually reclaimed the area and constructed facilities there. We are not constructing. We are doing some repair works on the BRP Sierra Madre to make sure that it remains livable for our personnel. And this is a commitment that we told our people that we will never abandon them, and therefore we will always look after their well-being to make sure that their basic needs are also provided.
Well, Colonel, as you can see, we have committed to that, asserting our sovereign rights there. But we are also overpowered by the 11 Chinese vessels. And is there any strategy moving forward, possibly replacing BRP Sierra Madre with a newer ship, so on and so forth?
I think you will know the answer when you flash that interview with the ambassador, and he was not really capable of answering that question. So there is something wrong with what they're doing, and as far as we are concerned, we'll think first what's best to do with the situation, so that we can address it to the best interest of our country.
All right, thank you so much for your time and for joining us tonight, AFP spokesperson Colonel Medel Aguilar.
Moving on to other news, agricultural group SINAG is calling for the abolishment of the National Food Authority, or NFA, for failing to ensure enough rice buffer stock. The group said that they received reports that the NFA preferred to buy imported rice instead of sourcing them from local farmers. Prices of imported rice have been going up due to high production costs and India's export ban. SINAG said that NFA buying local rice would have helped stabilize prices.
Hindi nila ginawa yung mandate nila na bumili ng palay. So yun ang bottom line dyan. Na hindi pala sila bumili ng bigas, palay sa atin magsasaka, no? And nalaman din natin na sa India sila nagni-negotiate ng bigas. Kung gagamitin ulit nila yung pera for importation, no? And wala sa mandate nila, we'll file a case against NFA.
What do senators have to say about this call to abolish the NFA? We have Shaila Francisco for the answer. Shaila, go ahead.
Gretch, senators are still split on the matter. For Senator Cynthia Villar, who chairs the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Food, abolishing the agency means job losses. Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel, on the other hand, is open to the idea if the agency fails to fulfill its mandate of ensuring enough buffer stock. Pimentel adds the NFA has a lot of explaining to do if it is indeed filling up its buffer stock with imported rice instead of buying from local farmers. Gretch?
All right, thanks for that update, Shaila Francisco. In other news, a very sad update today. The Department of Migrant Workers Secretary Susan Toots Ople has passed away. In a statement, the DMW said Ople passed away around 1 p.m., surrounded by family and loved ones. No cause of death was given, but Secretary Ople had been battling breast cancer for years. Ople bared that she was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in 2019 and underwent breast surgery to remove the tumor in 2020. In late July, Ople took a break from her duties to grieve the passing of her two elder brothers, former Hagonoy Mayor Felix Ople and former journalist Blas Ople Jr., who both succumbed to lung cancer. Ople, who championed the rights of migrant workers, was appointed by President Bongbong Marcos last year to take the helm of the newly created DMW. The president has since expressed his sorrow over the death of Ople.
It's a very, very sad news. I have lost a friend. The Philippines has lost a friend. Secretary Tulsi is a special person, and with a deep compassion, really, for the people that she had to care for, namely the migrant workers. And she was very, very. It's a big loss.
After the break, Private Sector Advisory Council's lead for jobs, Joey Concepcion, warns of the negative impact of the work-from-home setup on the country's economic growth. He will be joining us for a more in-depth discussion on that. When the big story returns, stay with us.
You're also watching the big story here on One News.
Let's shift things over to labor because last month, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. actually lifted the COVID-19 state of public health emergency, marking a big step post-pandemic. And now that we are all back on the streets, will work from home be a thing of the past? Here is Private Sector Advisory Council Jobs Lead Joey Concepcion weighing in.
I have mixed views on that. Kasi pag work from home tayo, anong mangyayari sa Pilipinas? There will be less mobility. If there is less mobility, there is less consumption.
The Philippine economy grew at its slowest pace in the second quarter after bouncing back from COVID recession. This 4.3% second quarter GDP now makes a good case for ramping up economic activity by having people back into offices. However, high transport costs and food prices make it difficult for employees to leave remote work behind. More and more people are also putting a premium on work-life balance, which they got to experience during the pandemic. A survey by JobStreet last March showed that more Filipinos are interested in hybrid or remote work setups that provide them with work-life balance. In fact, nearly a third of respondents said that they prefer to not go back to the office at all.
Let's get more insights on this from Go Negosyo founder Joey Concepcion. He's the job sector lead for the Private Sector Advisory Council. Good evening, Joey. Thanks for joining us again.
Good evening.
You had mixed views about this, about the work from home setups. I was just going to say that the biggest proof point to work from home is something we just experienced tonight, which is terrible traffic. Took us twice as long to get here. It's not just on EDSA. I didn't even pass EDSA, but I nearly did not make it to the show. Sean also was a photo finish. This doesn't seem to be, I mean, as we enter the Burr months, of course, we all expect it to get worse. So Tell us, why work from home is such an issue.
No, it's not an issue. I think what are we trying to really focus on is really job generation. As you can see, you said it yourself that the GDP in the second quarter went down to 4.2%. No? So if we want to see economic growth, and that's very important, whether you work from home, I mean, this issue, that's a management prerogative, and let the companies decide whether they would like to allow their people to work from home. There are some, and there are some who don't. Like in our company, we don't allow work from home, but we've given Saturday off, and Friday they can go home earlier. So each company can modify it. No? My point really is that, as you can see, agriculture and forestry, according to your news, lost about 511,000 workers. No, so what we really need to do is rather than debate on the issue who gets to work from home and not. No, I know work-life balance is important. I know the traffic issues are there, but then if what we want to see is more mobility, just imagine if everybody just works from home. What do you think will happen to the offices in the buildings, the canteens, the MSMEs that support that whole system? No, they will also lose business. When you go to a place and you see the city bustling with a lot of mobility, then you know that this city is, moving along. But if the city is empty and totally no traffic at all, I would get worried. That means there is less economic activity. So, I mean, I guess each one has their own perspective, but I think the country now has to focus on economic growth. At least these people who have a job, whether they work from home or they work in the office, they have a job. That's the most important. But there's still many people out there who don't have jobs. And this is what we have to help. And agriculture is the possible game changer for this. Because as you noticed in your report, 511,000 workers who come from the agri sector don't have a job. So this is what the BISAC Jobs is trying to do, find ways and means to create more job opportunities. No?
So regardless of setup, just create more job opportunities. I was wondering, though, just to stretch that last topic a little bit further, how do the businessmen, the employers feel about hybrid work setups? We all know, we've heard it before, boomers will prefer people to show up at work physically, and like maybe millennial bosses, less so. But what's your experience?
Well, the BPOs, they can argue that some of that work can really be from home, and that's why there is a 70-30 setup, no, that's out there with PESA registered BPOs, no. So I mean, the government is adapting to it, management is adapting to it, but in companies that are really trying to gain back, momentum since the pandemic, now we're towards the recovery, and hopefully the next wave of growth does happen, is all what we're expecting to see. Now, for that to happen, we really have to have a hardworking workforce. No? So there are certain elements, yes, I understand that you can really work from home and do a good job. I have no debate about that. But there are some companies who prefer that their employees come to work on time so that they are able to set the discipline. After the pandemic, I've seen our workforce slacken. It was not the same. And as they got back to work, then everything started to come back, the discipline, then being able to dress up and all of that. Because when you work from home, you just be in pajamas, short pants, don't wear makeup, etc. So over time, you even lose your social skills, and we saw that. No, so it's not a matter of we want to build a workforce that is united, that's driven, and you need to be in the office to socialize, or else your personality will change. That's my experience from this whole pandemic. Even myself, we were all affected, not seeing friends for so many months. No?
But sir, hindi po ba nung pandemic din, nagkaroon din ng more opportunities for people, for flexible work arrangements to happen? For example, freelance work here, freelance work there. It's cheaper to get labor here kasi hindi po siya permanent. What are the opportunities that we can look into that was developed during the pandemic that can hopefully improve efficiency and productivity of people working from home?
You know, during the pandemic allowed the people to were forced to get a digital wallet. That was the biggest game changer to me, and that's why you see digitalization really ramping up. The second thing is that today advertising agencies are challenged with the new micro influencers, and there are a lot of them out there. So even our company, we've stopped using an advertising agency, and we now look at the best micro or influencers out there to even develop content. So it's an unbelievable amount of creativity that was created during this pandemic, and people did work from home. And I will not debate that there are types of skills that you can work from home. And to me, being on social media and being a influencer, you can earn a good amount of money. So that is a huge, huge wave, no? And many companies are moving towards that direction. Unfortunately, it comes at a time when the media outfits and the TV station are in disarray. So this set of digital creative people are taking now that role.
All right, Joey, since we have you here tonight, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the proposed across-the-board wage hike for NCR that was proposed by Senate President Mig Zubiri. How are you feeling about that, as well as how do employers feel about it and employees feel about it?
Well, my own thoughts about it is yes, I mean, our workers have to get paid well. But for that to happen, we really have to see economic growth. No? And we have CBAs, even our companies, most companies do have CBAs. No? So we have our collective bargaining agreements, which we agree on with our employees, no, on wages moving forward. So there are already existing structures for wage increases. But there are MSMEs who cannot even afford to increase wages at this point in time because they're still at the recovery period. So uh, I I know Mig's is his intent is correct. I mean, our people have to get a decent pay. No, there's no doubt about that. And but we have to allow the process to take place because those companies who have unions are negotiate with their employees. No? So definitely we cannot hire people and underpay them forever. No? But we have to look at how many companies out there can afford. No? Big companies like us, yes, we can afford. No? But most of the MSMEs who are just recovering from the pandemic and now moving up, because after the pandemic, we had inflation. That inflation was really bad for about a year. No? And now that interest rates have been frozen, that means there's a sign that the inflation is going down. And I've seen it. We have started to drop prices of our ice cream, our flour, every product of what we produce. We've rolled back the prices because inflation is down. And the people will start to feel that in the coming months.
Here's hoping, right? We're going to have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Private Sector Advisory Council Jobs Lead, Joey Concepcion. We're going to pause for another quick one right after that. After pushback in the motorcycle riding sector, the MMDA is now considering having a shared lane for cyclists and motorcycle riders. That and more when the big story returns. Stay here with us. back. You are still watching the big story here in One News. The MMDA is studying proposals to make the bike lanes on EDSA a shared lane among cyclists and motorcycle riders. MMDA Chair Romando Artes said this after they began apprehending riders using the bike lane. Artes clarifies that if the lane will be shared, cyclists will be given the right of way. The MMDA Traffic Engineering Center is also conducting a simulation to see if the bike lane can accommodate some 24,000 motorcycles. The MMDA will conduct a meeting with transport groups on August 29 regarding the shared lane proposal.
Marami pong challenges bago pa maipatupad yan na kailangan naming aralin at ipresenta sa DOTR na pag-aralan yung posibilidad na maging shared lane itong bicycle lane.
Bicycles given the right of way, I don't know how that will happen if there are more motorcycles on the road.
I get that in
24th
theory it should be,
Yeah.
but in reality here in the Philippines,
Delikado.
sobrang delikado.
I don't know how they will enforce that.
Delicado, but I guess this is their compromise.
Window hours
right?
are actually better.
It's a better idea, you
Yeah,
think, as
I also
cyclists?
think so. I mean, I don't think they should share it, the pace
Medyo,
of.
but it's good to test it out, right?
But how would you do window hours? And for instance, morning rush hour. A lot of riders, a lot of people get to work
No, usually
on their
kasi,
motorcycles.
sabi rin ni Senator JB, diba? The bicycle riders, usually in the morning. So you encourage them to leave earlier. Then after that, yung motors. Pero yun nga, medyo mahirap siya.
But also, a lot of
It's
people go to work
challenging.
using their motorcycles, right? So rush hour din sila. They also have to leave at 6 or 5, right?
Well, if the motorcycle riders want to share the bike lanes, then they should probably be more considerate of how they
Right, but
go
in
side by
times
side.
like tonight, I don't think it matters.
Her bias is coming out.
Yeah,
I wonder.
in times like tonight, I don't think it matters what kind of
Okay,
vehicle you're
how
on.
did you guys get to work?
I mean, I used
Did
a
you
car.
walk?
We did
Okay.
use a car. I think Regina had to walk the
At
last
some
mile.
point, I had to walk
She had to
because
walk the last
traffic
mile.
today,
It's
tonight
incredibly
is at a standstill. Look at that.
Even in the morning.
Look
I
at
had
those
to,
pictures. That's EDSA.
That
It
is
was at a
EDSA.
standstill
And we
beginning
can
at around
see-
5.
Right,
Little
you can
past
see
5.
the bike lane with motorcycles all over it.
So whenever we ask people what's wrong, I mean, okay, there's some amount of traffic on EDSA is always expected, but tonight it was just incredibly,
Slow.
difficult, right? Took us twice as long to get here. We were joking
outside
in the
TV5,
chat
I
group
think.
that we nearly were not going to make it to the show, even though we left our houses well ahead of time. So we, started asking around what's going on tonight. What's with the traffic? The reports from that there was a stalled vehicle on EDSA. That they had to tow away at some point, and so that's why the traffic spilled over to the side
think it was
streets.
raining a
Northbound, apparently, past 6 p.m. tonight. On the northbound lane, there was stalled vehicle that caused, traffic all the way from Magallanes to Santolan flyover. But also on the southbound, it was just as bad. So I'm not sure
No,
anymore.
the southbound lane was pretty fast. I passed there. I passed as a southbound around
Okay.
7
But
o'clock.
all
and
the
it was,
side streets were clogged up.
the side
right?
streets were clogged.
Which
is weird.
From Pasig all the way to Makati, everything was just not moving. It was a giant car park out there.
Maybe it's because
Right.
of the apprehensions.
I don't know.
Again,
Ang daming
classes,
reasons, right?
the
Time
rain,
to repeat what we always say, that it was a
Economic-
good call.
economic growth.
Economic growth, but also a good call for President
Economic
Marcos
growth.
to suspend work.
I even heard some people say FIBA is happening.
Oh, yeah,
tonight.
FIBA.
FIBA on
I
Friday.
mean, I don't know. Are there that many people rushing to the venue? The games haven't even started, right? So
Well,
I don't know anymore.
so-
MMDA, please, if you have an answer, I'm dying to find out. But right now, we're going to pause for a quick one.
After the break, we'll talk about the chaos of the upcoming FIBA World Cup, as well as the love Filipinos have for basketball, with somebody who has seen the beauty of it all, Pacific Rim's author Rafe Bartholomew, joining us when the big story returns.
Welcome back. You are still watching the big story here in One News.
House Speaker Ferdinand Martin Romualdez led the welcome dinner for the officials of FIBA Central Board over at the Bureau of Treasury building in Intramuros, Manila. Accompanying Speaker Romualdez in hosting the esteemed visiting officials were Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas Chairman Emeritus Manny Pangilinan, President Al Panlilio, and Vice President Ricky Vargas. Also present were Senator Sonny Angara, Deputy House Speaker Robbie Puno, Philippine Olympic Committee Chairman Bambol Tolentino, and Philippine Sports Commission Chairman Dicky Bachman. Among the FIBA officials who were in the welcome dinner were FIBA President Haman Inyang, FIBA Treasurer Ingo Weiss, Secretary General Andrea Zaglis, and FIBA member Celestine Adjanahun. Okay, that was pretty far though, Intramuros. So that couldn't have caused the traffic, could it?
And that was last night anyways. It's no secret that the FIBA World Cup will be the most prestigious sporting event the Philippines will be hosting since, well, 1978 Basketball World Cup. That, of course, traces back to the country's love for basketball. Why exactly do Philippines love the sport so much? Well, we have the perfect person to answer that question. We have with us live in studio Pacific Rim's author Rafe Bartholomew. Good evening. Welcome to the show. You beat me to the studio. Tell us how, despite the terrible traffic tonight.
He was better at being Filipino than
I
us.
know. I got here in the nick of time, and you were already right there sitting and waiting for your turn. How did you get here in time?
The travel hack, MRT lang.
Oh, there we go.
So how is it compared to the last time you were here in the Philippines?
Well, luckily I've been able to come back and forth a lot over the years. But I think the traffic always gets worse. And also, I mean, I've always commuted actually, always taken the MRT, jeeps, buses, and the lines to get into the MRT stations, the LRT stations, that's gotten worse and worse over the years.
The last
It's
time
hard.
being what year?
I mean, I was here in January.
Oh, January.
And the MRT wasn't that crowded tonight?
Off hours, because I'm going like medyo
counterflow.
Okay. I was coming from Cubao, so.
Right. So tell us what you're here for.
I'm here for the FIBA World Cup. I wouldn't miss it. I mean, of course, I first came to the Philippines in 2005 to begin research for Pacific Rims. And this feels like, of course, a huge moment for the country to host. But also for me as someone who has made Philippine basketball one of the biggest and most important parts of my life, to see the country on this stage, it's amazing.
How did you even get the idea to use Filipinos' love for basketball as a topic?
I lucked into it, to be honest. I didn't know. A lot of the time people would ask, oh, did you have a relative or an uncle who was in the military or someone who told you? I didn't. I stumbled into the subject in a book. A Sports Illustrated writer had gone all around the world and wrote a chapter on different countries, different states in the U.S. And there was 17 pages on the Philippines. That blew my mind. It was things that now myself and we all sort of are used to seeing and know. The idea when I first read it of kids playing in their bare feet, people making their own baskets.
Okay, what's the Tagalog word for slippers?
Chinelas.
There we go.
The celebrity around Barangay Ginebra players, and at that time Senator Robert Jaworski. I mean, it inspired me. It's like there's this whole other basketball world out there that I had known nothing about, and I grew up loving the game, and I wanted to see it for myself.
Have you been keeping track of Philippine basketball developments over the years? Because it has changed tremendously with Filipinos going outside, going to Japan, going to other countries to play professionally. What can you say about how the game has evolved?
Well, that's been one of the more exciting developments in recent years, no? I mean, to see how, the development of leagues like the B League in Japan and the KBL in Korea, where they're now recruiting very actively recruiting.
Is that good
talent.
for Philippine basketball, or?
Long term, yes. Short term, it's a big challenge, right? Because in Japan, you can make currently, I think, more money playing there as a import for Silaki, for Ravenna, or Ray Ray Parks. These guys, they're making, it's a big opportunity, and you make a lot of money. I think the competition between leagues will be good over time because it will force, like the PBA for so long has had the entire country to itself. And
Actually,
They
it's
will
good you
force the
mentioned
league
that.
to innovate.
Yeah, because the PBA is actually last season they had a Hong Kong team, and now Commissioner Marshall, who you're familiar with, he said that he is talking to Hong Kong now to see if we can have games there, because the Bay Area Dragons are, I think, going to be joining again. Did you ever see this happening, that we would expand to include an away team, basically?
At the time, when I was working on the book, it's not something I expected to happen because it didn't feel like basketball was growing in the other countries in the region at a rate that it would ever make sense to sort of compete and collaborate the way that they're doing now. But it's great to see, I think, that, and it's great to see also the way that those other leagues, they want to beat the PBA teams, the Filipino teams, because they know that this is the second oldest pro league in the world, the oldest pro league in Asia, where the country that we come to get our Asian imports from. So it's like playing. Even though maybe in geopolitical terms, these are bigger fish, but in basketball terms, sometimes they're looking at the Philippines as the more developed basketball nation in some ways.
Rafe, you have a podcast produced by Puma Podcast called The Global Bounce, in which you talk about a golden age for Philippine basketball. And you say that our time on the global stage is coming. What are you seeing there? What makes you say that?
Is that going to happen in this World Cup?
Global, not just international, not just Asia.
I'm going to add to that, our chances of getting into the Olympics.
Oh, yeah, good question.
So to get into the Olympics, the Philippines would have to be the top finisher of all the Asian region teams in this World Cup. It's possible. I think it will depend on how Gilas fares in this group round, especially the first one. If they
What do you
can
think
win.
about the group that we're in? Group
Dominican
A, right,
Republic
Reg?
is strong, huh? I mean, and Italy.
Carl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, we saw he arrived last night. It's a big ask. I think the home crowds are going to help. Players around the world have experienced hostile crowds. I don't know if they've seen the enthusiasm that the Filipino crowds will bring.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a tough one. Jordan Clarkson, of course, playing with Gilas, coming from the Utah Jazz. They're expecting him to carry the team offensively. If he plays well, other teams get rattled. Crazy things can happen in international basketball. It would take some upsets, but it's not impossible.
So what's your fearless forecast? How far can they go, you think?
Come on.
I know
be
the goal
honest.
is to get to the crossover round, so to be
Okay.
top two in the group.
Okay.
That's a good goal. I think the odds are probably against that happening. The last, in 2013, Gilas won one game in the World Cup. One win would be good. 2 wins should be the goal. If you've put a gun to my head, I'd say I wouldn't. It's hard to say. Oh, Gilas is beating Italy. Something's going to happen.
Right.
But that's you gotta hope for magic.
Okay, well, again, gun to your head. Who do you think is going to win?
I think the Gilas will do well for us. They'll
but the
make
tournament.
No,
Who's
they're
gonna win the
not-
tournament?
win the tournament?
Yeah.
Team USA.
Oh, come on. You came all the way here to say that.
I'm sorry.
Okay, get out of my set.
Not even
Go
a
home,
European
go home.
team.
Okay, I have a serious question though.
Spain, I think.
In this book,
Defending.
you were
Oh,
immersed
yes,
with
she's
the
been waiting
Alaska.
to have you sign the book,
Yeah,
by
I
the
have.
way.
I know it's
That's
very
her- that's
old.
her book.
It is my book. So this is Rafe's book. I've had it for a while, as you can, the mildew.
Papasayin ba natin?
Papasahin natin mamaya.
Mamaya.
Pero you spent a lot of time with the Alaska Aces. That's basically who you immersed with, and a lot of your stories, of course, are through the eyes of the Alaska Aces. Since then, they have disbanded. They are now the Converge Fiber Xers. But Coach Tim is now in the coaching staff of Gilas. And how do you think his coaching will affect the game of the Philippine team?
Well, it seems like it's already made a big impact since he joined the Gilas coaching staff, with head coach Chod Reyes, during the qualification stages, and you saw the team start to come together a little bit. They were having a rocky period at that time, and there was some controversy around it. I think maybe because of Coach, I think they were already a good coaching staff and very experienced, but the Ginebra brand in some ways that Coach Tim brings with him kind of helps get the fans and the country on board, and also just to have another respected basketball mind there especially with he's focusing, I think, a lot on defense in this World Cup for the team, and that's always been a strength of his in the PBA. So it's a big help.
Sabi nga nila, ito nga, Philippines has invested a lot in basketball. May it be if we win a medal or not, a trophy or not. Do you think it's merited that we put so much attention to this sport, given that we've won in weightlifting, we've won in other sports, we've won more medals elsewhere? What can you say about that? And taking a look at how the team has progressed, we've gotten far, but possibly, what can we do to get better out there? Given that we're short. Ano mo sabi nga nila, maliliit ang Pinoy. Bakit nga ba tayo basketball ng basketball?
Pero tatangkad ang mga manalarang Pilipino, di ba? I mean, we have Kai Soto now, 7'3".
So matatangkad na para sa'yo?
Oh, syempre. Pero I mean, so I think nutrition has improved over the generations.
Okay.
There are players are getting taller.
Ganito na lang. Ano yung mga hindi pa nag-improve? Sa mga nakita mo dati?
Ayan, yung magulo sa mga powers sa basketball.
The politics.
The politics, always.
But what are you looking forward to seeing in this FIBA World Cup? May we get into the Olympics or not? What are you excited for the most? You said that basketball can break through regions, through the regional mindset of people. It has one common language that everybody can speak, no matter where you're from. What are you excited for in this FIBA World Cup?
I think seeing the basketball players from all over the world that will be visiting the country, both in this group stage and then the ones that come, hopefully we'll have Luka Doncic or whoever else afterwards. And seeing how they respond to how the embrace of the fans, the way that the country receives them, then they'll go home to Slovenia, to Serbia, to wherever they're from, and kind of spread the gospel of Philippine basketball and say, wow, they're different there. Iba talaga ang
Actually,
basketball sa
alam mo
Pilipinas.
tayo kasi mahal naman natin yung basketball, pero pag pumunta ka sa ibang bansa, hindi nila masyadong alam yung Pilipinas.
Well,
Except sa Croatia.
Hopefully,
Syempre sa US.
Except when they've experienced it themselves, like Rafe, and also how strong we are on social media.
Right.
How rabid we can be online.
How rabid we can
Diba?
that's true.
Double-edged
That's
sword,
true.
yung social media.
Good insights. Hopefully, they don't bring back stories of the traffic. Thank you so much for joining us, Pacific Rim's author Rafe Bartholomew. Don't go without signing Sean's book. We're going to pause for a quick break right now.
Actually,
I'm
no.
sorry.
That is it for the show tonight because I'm going to have my book signed.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.